Are you ready for our second edition of off-season files,
Oh
man?
yeah, I'm ready, man. Are you ready?
All right. Oh, bro, I'm ready. I'm ready, sir. This is the segment that CJ and I have created for the off-season where we go through all 30 teams and we go in alphabetical order for those who may not feel like we've talked about your team enough, these episodes are for you. I'll let CJ take it away, but the way we kind of do it is we give three players about who the franchise is building around, then we get into their cap and their balance sheet, what that looks like. Obviously, that's important to building a team. If you have no money to spend, then you cannot build any further. And then lastly, we look at the draft capital that they have. So their draft picks, outgoing picks, incoming picks, the picks that they own, all that good stuff. We'll probably pull up. We use Spode Track, so shout out to you guys. If you guys ever see this, hopefully you throw us a sponsor. But they're super dope. If you guys want this information, you can go over there. This season, since we do have the website, I'll be putting our team grades on the website. So, click the link in the description. I know sometimes we haven't been putting it in the description, but I saw that and I edited it. So on the last couple episodes, I'm sorry, it should be now in the description. So you should be able to click on it, but there will be a link in the description to our website, and on there, we'll start putting our off-season file and the report for that. So it'll be pretty cool. You guys will be able to see what we think is going on, while there is no basketball being played, just to give you guys an outlook on next year. But I'll let you take it away, CJ. And we go in alphabetical order. So if you can do the math, we're starting with the Atlanta Hawks, my man. So I'll let you get into it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, it's like Z said, this was a segment we, started last off season, so it's dope. We're coming back at it, year two, and hopefully y'all enjoy it because, if you don't think we talk about your team or if you feel like we haven't really showcased them off season, we definitely will. And, these are great, informational, super dope to kind of dive deep into a team's books and talk about the players that they're building around. Cause I think that's a question that, a lot of franchises have to deal with at the beginning of a season. Like, man, who are we trying to build this roster around? So starting it off, like you said, we're starting off on A and we got the Atlanta Hawks, man. So who are the Atlanta Hawks building around, Z, right? That's the first question we always ask, or who is blank building around? This one's Atlanta Hawks. We have three players, and our first player, first and foremost, Jalen Johnson, man. Jalen Johnson, at 24 years old, has finally become the main focus of the franchise after the Hawks traded Trae Young to Washington. Johnson took over for the Hawks, and had a career year, averaging a career high in points, 22.3, assists, 7.9, and rebounds, 10.3. Johnson is one of the best value contracts in the entire NBA. He just signed a 5-year extension in 2024 worth $150 million, $30 million per year. And it's looking like that contract is an absolute steal, Z. I mean, I think it's the season he just put up, right? The fact that he's only getting $30 million a year, he's putting almost...
It's a robbery. F a steal. It's a robbery.
Yeah, it's insane, man. And the fact that they just believed in him, right? Because that was when he got that contract, Trae Young was still on the roster. They're kind of probably assuming he was going to be the guy that they were building around, right? They bet on him with him signing that extension. And he proved to them this year why that contract, like you said, was a robbery. So, but this season, Jalen Johnson made his first All-Star game, or All-Star team, and third team All-NBA for his work throughout his campaign. The Hawks must figure out a way to improve in the playoffs, though, and help Jalen Johnson blossom into the superstar that we know he can become. Atlanta took the defending champs, Z. They're probably really the only team that really seemed like it gave them a little bit of problems throughout this whole championship.
That's got to be worth something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good point. You just said that, but damn it, like, get him some help. Jalen Johnson. I was looking at his playoff splits, and I will say, because I know people that are smart in the basketball nerds, like, yes, he didn't have the greatest playoffs, and neither did a couple other guys on this list that we have. I'm not going to spoil it. The next player that I'll get into, but Jalen Johnson
Yep.
is a superstar.
Yep.
We know that he's a superstar, and they were able to take the Knicks to 6 games, which, like I said earlier, has to be worth something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's something where I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if you remember. I'm pretty sure you do. You remember a lot of things, Z. But I had mentioned it before. In the not preseason, but before the playoffs started, I had said that was
Yeah,
something that I was going to be keeping a close eye on too because of the type of player that he is and his ability to get to the rim, go in transition. We know the game slows down in the playoffs, right? So that was my main thing. Obviously, his efficiency, his points took a little bit of dip, but that is the main question for us right now at this very moment. What are they going to do to help him in the playoffs? Obviously, you're expecting him to improve his game. He's a young player. My thing is probably the jump shot, right? That's probably the elephant in the room. That the most thing he needs, the biggest thing that he needs to address in this offseason. But besides that, you have to have. I mean, we talked about it earlier, or in the podcast we just shot. Sorry. It's you need a whole roster to be able to go deep
yeah,
into this playoffs.
yeah.
So that was a thing. But yeah, I mean, that was something, prior to the playoffs starting. I felt like the game was going to slow down for him a little bit. He probably wasn't going to be as efficient, but we know he's their best player on this roster. So I think that's kind of, something that is solidified and they know that as well. So we'll see what that looks like. But
100%.
like you mentioned, it needs to be addressed for sure.
Yeah, that's a good take, bro. And obviously, he gets the first player that they're building around, and it's pretty clear that it's Jalen Johnson. If you're an avid listener in Three Man Weave, you knew who it was going to be. But
Mhm.
it's now on the Hawks to figure out how they can get him in situations to win because they still have the rest of the roster to build out. And as you guys will see, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in this segment, they're not necessarily strong everywhere. So there's still some work to be done to help Jalen Johnson get to that next level, but he's the clear number one on this squad. But rolling into the number two guy, man, that we think the Hawks are clearly building around. This dude went crazy this year, man, but it's none other than Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Nah signed with the Hawks via a sign and trade in the 2025 season. And the three-man weave boys know the Hawks are absolutely jumping for joy. Alexander Walker is signed to a 4-year, $62 million contract. And once again, this contract seems to be one of the best in the NBA at the moment. And give credit to the Hawks front office here, man. They've been able to weave their way through the Trae Young situation. They've landed on potentially 3 diamond in the roughs if you want to call Dyson Daniels one. We know he had a down season last year, but defensively. But that's how you win. In today's CBA, you have to find these value contracts, these home run contracts. These two players, Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, if you asked around in the NBA and the rest of the league, they'd argue these are some of the best contracts available. I mean, 4 years, $62 million for what Nickeil Alexander-Walker was able to do, which we're about to get into. It completely seems like one of the best contracts in the NBA at the moment. So shout out to the Hawks front office for that. Alexander Walker alongside Johnson had a career year winning the most improved player award by averaging a career high in points, 20.8, steals, 1.3, and minutes per game, which is a big caveat because was a bench player, came to the Hawks, started 71 games, by the way, but he played 33 minutes a night in 78 games, but he started 71 of them. Pretty good for a quote-unquote bench player, right? We know was coming off the bench for the Timberwolves. We saw what he was able to do for them in the playoffs, but it's clear he's not a bench player. And it's obvious when given the opportunity, he's much more than that. Also, he's 27, so he's in his prime, and we know that he's looking to do even more damage this upcoming season, coming up off the back of the confidence boost that he's going to get from the front office, his teammates, and the coaching staff. When you have a season like this in the NBA, they want you to build on top of that. I know his leash is going to get longer. He's going to be able to make mistakes now and play freely, and he should only get better from here. I don't know if he'll average 21 points, and he doesn't have to, but a good 16 points, 17 points on good efficiency is exactly what the Hawks need, and I believe he can provide that for you on a consistent basis, not just a one-off thing. So it's pretty clear to us that Alexander Walker is also a serious two-way threat in the NBA given the right circumstances, and for only $14 million a year, the Hawks will gladly allow him to slot next to Johnson as a hybrid two guard. And that's a big statement right there. $14 million for most improved player award, a two-way guy. Like, unreal, man. And I don't know if the Hawks last season would have been like known they were going to be in this position to potentially build around Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But now that he's proven that capability and his scoring ability, and obviously in the playoffs that also dropped off. So we'll have to see how that impact. That's another knock on his game specifically. CJ McCollum was really the one to get them going offensively. But if Nickeil Alexander-Walker can figure out a consistent way to be good in the playoffs, this is one of the best value contracts in the NBA, and the Hawks are very, very lucky to be building around somebody like that.
Yeah, it's it's the fact that they bet on him, right? Because we saw the type of player that he was on the Timberwolves. Like you said, bench player, quote unquote, being able to contribute, great minutes in a playoff series, defend well, and then, be able to score at a pretty efficient level during the playoffs, right? That's the type of player Nall was prior to entering the season. The season he had this year, bro, I can speak highly of it because I took the chance on him. I picked him up on the waivers this year for our dynasty league.
Yeah, facts.
Best pickup for me personally. The fact that he was on the waivers, he was balling out. At first I thought it was a one-off thing, right? Oh, maybe he's going on a little heater for this month. No, bro, he was able to do this for the whole year. He was coming off the bench for a little bit, then he started getting starter minutes, and then he was, a starting guard, and now he was able to do what he did this year. Obviously, fell off in the playoffs. That a lot was being asked for him. He's not the guy coming off the bench anymore. You were the, besides Jalen Johnson and obviously CJ McCollum balled out, but you are a focal point of an offense, and now teams are, starting to key in on to you. But his season he had, the amount of money that he's, the contract that he's getting paid, like Z mentioned, probably one of the best contracts right now in this league for what he's contributed for the Atlanta Hawks at least. And the two-way ability, I think he's still getting more comfortable with his, playmaking and ability to create off the dribble. But there was glimpses where I'm looking at his play, and I'm like, what? I didn't know Nickeil Alexander-Walker had it like that. You know what I mean? So the fact that he was doing that, I think it shows his development. He's turning into, most improved player type of player. One of the not one of the best guards because there's so many great guards, but he's starting to get into that mix, and he's averaging 20 points. And like you said, he doesn't need to do that again. He doesn't need to be averaging 25 points a game for him to be a contributor to this roster. He just needs to be able to score efficiently and defend. And I think that's enough. That's all that the Hawks can ask for. And like you mentioned it, bro, like his improvement and his development since the New Orleans Pelicans days. So it's crazy to see how far he's come. Obviously his, you hear it all the time, right? His cousin is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, seeing what his cousin has turned to. Now he's, not at that level yet because back-to-back MVP, but he's working the way up. It's dope to see. It's dope to see that. And obviously, like I said, he's on my dynasty team, so I can't speak highly enough of him, but great player. Like I said, pickup of the year for me in dynasty. And obviously at the contract that he was given on the Hawks, last year, it's going to pay dividends for them. They have maneuvered their way through a lot of these contracts, and like you mentioned before, we were talking about it. It's incredible to see because that's how the margins, right? The margins of little things that's makes a huge difference for your future and even for a season. So the Hawks, are starting to make moves, and like we said, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is the second player that they're building around.
100%, bro. Like he's been awesome.
Yeah. I was saying, going into the last player that we believe that the Atlanta Hawks are building around, it's another one of the guys that I was able to pick up this year, man. Kingston Flemings, man. Flemings hasn't proved himself yet, but it's clear the investment the Hawks are making in him. With CJ McCollum likely to leave within the next 3 to 4 years, like we talked about earlier, Z, Flemings is the Hawks' next point guard project. Flemings was drafted with the 8th overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft. And with Trae Young in Washington, it's now up to Flemings to become the Hawks' lead floor general that we believe that he can be. And
Yeah,
the
bro.
situation that the Hawks are in, he's can slot in perfectly. You know what I mean? Obviously, like we just mentioned, CJ McCollum was their lead guard in this playoffs. We saw what he was able to do. Imagine if they actually had a true point guard that can play make,
Right.
can defend, and also can score. So it's a picture perfect scenario in our opinion, and that's why we believe that he is the third player that they're building around. But with that being said, Z, Fleming's averaged 16 points at Houston this past season and showed flashes of great floor general, or being a great floor general, sorry, as he averaged 5.2 assists to only 1.8 turnovers. Fleming's
Mm.
also shot 38% from three, but it was on low volume and on only 3 attempts per game. Regardless, Z, Fleming's is signed to a 4-year, $33 million rookie deal, which could potentially be another great contract for Atlanta, depending on what Flemings can do over the next 2 to 3 seasons. We'll see. He's still young. We're not saying that he's going to be an elite guard right out the gate, but we talk about it with the Spurs. We talked about it with the Thunder. When you have great draft picks, you're able to invest into these guys. Their contracts are so, small in relative to what they can be. It doesn't, there's a lot that can go wrong, quote unquote. But with
Right.
the investment that you're making into this draft pick, it could pay so much more dividends in the future. But it's always tough to grade how valuable rookies will be, Z. But what makes Fleming special is his two-way capability. He averaged 1.5 steals per game at Houston. We believe that if Flemings is given a longer leash, he could make all NBA, all rookie first team without a doubt, Z.
Yeah, like without a doubt. And you said it at the beginning. CJ's been awesome. Hey, shout out to you, bro. I didn't really know you could still go like this. Obviously, he's the Damian Lillard partner in
Bro.
crime, but he's been one of the more consistent 20 points per game scorers that we've had in the NBA over the last 5 to 6 seasons. But obviously, balled out in the playoffs. But Atlanta still decided to take a swing on Flemings, and it's clear to me that they were, high on him enough to take him with their pick and expect him to be the lead floor general. And $33 million a year, if he's able to turn into a contributing player in 2 years, and, that looks like, 14 points a game, 6 assists a night, only turning the ball over twice, maybe hitting 2 threes a game. That's a hell of a player,
Yep.
and the Hawks need him to turn into that. They need a new style, a new style of point guard in their
Mm-hmm.
system.
Yep.
And he can guard a lot better than CJ McCollum. He's obviously younger,
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, it's the two-way capability that sticks out for me. And he's a great fit for playing alongside Jalen Johnson and Keel Alexander Walker. Like, this is the type of
Yep.
player that would need, like, a guard that you would
Mm-hmm.
want to fit alongside guys like that. And it's clear, and I know we'll talk about it in a second, but it's clear their front court is a little weak.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect to Okonwu or Visar, but it's just going to be tough for their big. They're going to have to play small a lot, and Kingston Flemings is a really good player to play small with because he can play a little bit bigger than he actually is.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be willing to guard forwards. He's aggressive enough to do that. He's also a great passer, like you mentioned, the assist to turnover ratio. Just want to see the 3-point shot go up, the volume. But you said it. It's hard. It's tough to grade rookies before they play.
Yeah.
You just got to give them a long leash, play them 25 minutes a game, and hopefully that ends up working out for you. But I believe it will. I'm very high on Kingston Flemings. I see no reason why he couldn't potentially be an all-star in this league.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not saying lightly. I'm saying it confidently. I believe he could be an all-star. So just the two-way capability is what does it for me. If he ends up averaging, 2 steals, 14 points a night, he's going to make first-team all-rookies. So don't be shocked to see him in the mix, bro, over the next couple of years. And I know he's with a good vet and CJ McCollum to help teach him how to do that. So and be that floor general. So I like it a lot, man. I believe they're definitely building around him and invest in that 8th pick because they could have traded it.
Yep.
But they decided to go with that guard, and we'll see how it works out for them, man. I believe it was an A+ draft pick. When we did talk about it, we said it was was a great pickup for Atlanta. So I'm sticking by that.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of that, I just kind of want to see where you're at, right? What do you think their starting five is going to be to start the season?
uh, McCollum's gonna start.
Yeah,
Um,
he's going to be the one.
Walker, yeah,
Walker.
Walker, uh, and then either Johnson at the 3 or 4, depending on what happens. Conwoo's either going to play the 4 or 5, depending on what happens with Visar, and then Johnson will play the 3 or 4, depending on what happens with Kuminga. It's kind of tough to answer that question with the amount of cap holds they have.
Right. And we'll get into that a little bit.
I'm gonna go with McCollum, Alexander Walker, Johnson, Okonwu, and Visar.
Okay, gotcha. So Fleming's coming off the bench.
Yes, and that's with the cap holds that they currently have. And I know you'll probably pull up Spotrac.
Yeah.
We'll speak about like their 3 most expensive contracts that they have. And by the way, the Hawks are run very well. They've done a good job about not overspending, so it's not a crazy balance sheet. It's not one of those ugly balance sheets that you guys might like hearing about. You like seeing people negative and red. You're like, oh, glad that's not my account. But the Hawks are in the clear for that. So I would say those 5.
Yeah.
But what about you?
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I was just curious as to what they're going to do with Dyson Daniels, though. That's kind of because, I
don't think he can start because he can't score, bro.
Right. That's the thing that sucks. And like on Spotrac, he's listed as a guard. We know he kind of plays that 2-3, depending on.
So I was thinking about him too.
You know what I mean? Like that.
I'd rather him.
Yeah, I'd rather. I would probably go with what you said. Honestly, that's kind of where I'm leaning as well. It all depends what Kuminga does. More than likely, he's not going to be on this roster, so that kind of clears the air already. But I agree. My only thing was, what are they going to do with Dyson Daniels? Obviously, we'll get into it later, but he's one of their highest paid players on this roster, and it's like coming off the bench. It just makes sense for him to, honestly, at this point. But yeah, I agree. I was just curious to where you were at with that, just kind of seeing, because I was looking at Spotrac. Obviously, I'm like, man, how are they gonna, 8th pick, right? You're wanting to have him get run
roster, right?
Right. What's that gonna look like? So, okay, yeah. I was just, before we start talking about the cap and roster situation, I wanted to talk about that real quick to kind of get
and I'll break it down because I did put it. Luckily, I have like exactly what their payroll is on this outline, so I'll tell you in a second. I'll have CJ explain who's getting paid what. That way, that's not confusing. And he did just talk for like 10 minutes. But I will get into how we're doing it this year. Since we're doing it a little earlier, there are some teams with some cap holds. So we'll use the projected practical salary cap, which is essentially a projection on what the team is going to do with those holds. So, for example, like CJ said, with Jonathan Kuminga, that's going to free up a lot of cap space for the Hawks if he does decide to walk. Now, we did say that earlier. If he decides to re-sign, that will change their balance sheet and the health of it, but I don't think he's going to resign because we've heard so many rumors about that. It is July 13th, though.
Yeah.
So, somebody like Jonathan Kuminga should be signed by now, which makes me a little nervous.
Yeah.
But it's just not the case. But that's why that's there. So I'll get into exactly what the numbers are, like the summary of the cap table, and then I'll explain the projected summary and kind of how that works. But their current cap maximum is $164 million and $961,000. I said that wrong. $164,961,000. That's their cap maximum. Their active roster is $188 million, which is 19th in the league right now. They have over $71 million in cap holds, which is second in the NBA. A lot of guys that are restricted free agents, they don't really know. They're kind of in limbo. So that number should drastically go down. But currently they're allocating $260 million towards their roster, which places them at 3rd in the NBA, putting them essentially $100 million in the tax, which is not good. That would be 28th in the league for negative balances. But we just said those cap holds won't stand. Most likely they'll get that down to $2 or $3 million. which will mean that they'll have a healthy balance sheet. Just right now, the way that cap holds work, they have to be put on the Hawks books, even if they aren't with the Hawks right now. It's just because they're a free agent. So like players like Kaminga, do you have the sheet up to see who's on the cap hold?
Yeah. So they have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 8 people on their cap hold.
Who are the main guys?
Kaminga, Kaminga has 35 million out of cap hold. Gabe Vincent at 21.9 million, and Tony Bradley 2.4. So it's really just Gabe Vincent, Jonathan Kaminga that are huge.
And Kaminga. And those two guys have been kind of up and down. We know Gabe Vincent. I know him very firsthand, and I'm glad we were able to get rid of him because he is sort of a walking anchor. But realistically, though, those two players will leave. That'll bump down their cap space, their projected cap space, to about $150 million, which again they were paying $190 million, so $40 million-ish dollars. And then the maximum possible cap space that they would have is it would place them. Remember, they were negative $95 million, $100 million. They would go up to negative $20 million, meaning they're only $20 million into the first apron. So I am not too sure what Jonathan Kaminga is going to do this late in the season, or honestly Gabe Vincent, but I don't think they'll be returning to Atlanta. I don't want to speak too soon on that, but it doesn't seem like Atlanta was in a rush to re-sign them. And sorry, not their first apron, the luxury tax. They'll be in the luxury tax, $20 million in the luxury tax. So they'll have a cheap roster. It's a pretty healthy balance sheet from the outside looking in. Now, if you go do research yourself, you'll see that they're allocating $260 million, which is a lot, but you'll see the cap holds and you understand how that works now. So hopefully you guys can see it's not really like they're paying $260 million for this roster. But if they were to re-sign every single guy and bring them back, they would, but they're obviously not going to do that. So that's a good little summary of their cap table right as of like today, July 13th. These numbers will change as free agency changes. So if you do the research on it in like a week or something, they could be different depending on what happens.
Yeah, it's it, like Z said it's really the cap holds, Kaminga, Gabe Vincent, but besides that, kind of going into their top players.
Who are the top three players getting paid right now?
Top three. The number one was our number one player that we had that they were building around, Jalen Johnson. He's getting $30 million, like we mentioned earlier. Dyson Daniels, who I mentioned about, who's going to be their starting five. That's why I brought him up. He's their second highest paid at 25. And then CJ McCollum is their third with 21 million, but he's unrestricted free agent next year. So they probably, depending on how he does this season, they might re-sign him, but those are the three highest players at this very moment.
For sure. And then most likely best contracts are Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. How much is Okongwu getting? Because I'd argue we know what he looks like. We don't know what Fleming's looks like, so we're not going to say he's the best. He's one of the best value contracts, but how much does Okongwu get paid per year again?
He is the fourth highest paid, and he's getting paid $16 million a year.
Yeah, that's another great value contract. So those three dudes are probably the best value for the Hawks right now. McCollum is a little older, and obviously they're paying him a little bit of money. But love what I'm seeing from Atlanta, man. Yeah. If they keep their balance sheet clean, we are going to give it a rating at the end, but you guys will see kind of where they stand, and then we'll give the team grade and explain kind of why that is. But yeah, as of right now, their balance sheet outside of the cap holds, which are kind of in limbo, looks pretty good. Again, it looked good last year, so that's not really a surprise. But I'm not too sure if you need to use the outline for this one, but like the draft capital and stuff, the picks that they own, I know they have a lot of certain picks coming, and a lot of them are outgoing. I know they've made a few trades in the draft to either move up or maybe trading away a pick. So I know the draft pick compensation and the draft capitals can get confusing, but hopefully CJ and I can do this good for y'all so y'all understand.
Yeah. I was about to kind of going off of that. ZD just mentioned it. They own 20, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Those are all first round picks. And then their second round picks, 27, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. And then they have their outgoing picks that ZD just mentioned. The 2027 first round pick goes to San Antonio. Then their 2028 second round pick goes to Brooklyn. 2029 second round pick goes to Charlotte, and a 2030 second round pick goes to OKC. And then some incoming draft picks that they have. They have the 2020 first round pick from Milwaukee or New Orleans, 28 first round pick from Utah or Cleveland. It's a swap. And a 29 second round pick from Cleveland, 2030 second round pick from New York,
New York,
2031
yeah.
second round pick from Houston, 32 second round pick from LA, but going to OKC in a swap, and a 2033 second round pick from Sacramento.
The incoming second rounders, those get traded a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure those will look different in the future as well, but they do own a lot of their draft. In the 2027 first round pick from Milwaukee or New Orleans, it smells juicy. You know, Milwaukee without Giannis and New Orleans still figuring out how to build. We don't know if they'll be good or not, but most likely it'll be Milwaukee's pick if New Orleans is good. So they have a lot to look forward to when it comes to building through the draft. We know Zachary Ricochet did not pan out, their number one pick. So they're still trying to rebuild off of that mistake. We know Ricochet is still on the roster. You know, we haven't spoken about him in this podcast yet, but we know he's still valuable and could potentially be good one day. You never know with these number one picks, but just draft capital wise and looking at the war chest of picks that they have, they own all of their picks. They've done a good job of not trading away everything. You guys will see some teams have no picks left. For example, the Lakers. When we get to our draft capital section, that part will be blank. Our picks are gone, first rounders. So you'll see how certain teams operate with their draft capital. Atlanta's done a really, really good job with that. And overall, just judging off of their balance sheet, we went through it, how expensive some of their players are, and then their draft capital and what their cap looks like and everything like that. We'd have to give it a rating of healthy. The way that we'll do this is unhealthy is clearly in the red. You're in the apron. Something's wrong. Fair is you're okay, but there's still some issues. And healthy is it's a clean balance sheet. We would like to have that if we were running a team. So the Hawks are in the healthy range, which is always good to see if you're a fan of your team. Again, somebody like me has no first round picks to trade anymore. So just to give you like a background, like there's teams out there that don't have any tradable first round picks. So if your team was able to keep, their first round pick through 2033, props to you. But just judging off the facts and kind of looking at their whole cap table, that's the rating we have to give the Hawks. So
yeah, you said it perfectly, bro. It's obviously as of right now, it doesn't look healthy, but it's because of the cap holds. But once that gets all figured out, they're going to be in a perfect situation, cap space wise. They signed Jalen Johnson to a great contract. They have a Neko Okongwu that we didn't really bring up that is on a great contract. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was that other great contract. And then you have your number 8 pick. He's on a great contract. So contract balance sheet wise, they look fantastic. They've done a great job of signing their young guys, investing into the players that may have gotten overlooked by another franchise, didn't want to bet on them, didn't want to give them that, give them that long contract to where it's, they feel comfortable in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but they did a great job of getting good talent, and they're invested into their youth, and I think that's why their balance sheet is looking so great. And it's a situation that having your first round picks, having a lot of other teams' first round picks that aren't projected to do the greatest, you can't really complain about the situation they're in right now when you have a youthful team and you have great first round picks for their future. It's a great situation for if you're a Hawks fan to be in right now.
Yeah, bro. And before we get into the team grade, I wanted to ask you, and obviously I'll give you my opinion as well, but what's one thing they can improve on for next year? And then what's one thing they should continue to lean into? So their strength. Obviously, we know the Hawks, one of the more dangerous assist teams last year. They were able to move the ball very well. But what's one weakness point you feel like they could improve upon?
Their weakness point, and it'll probably be what you mentioned as well, their front court, honestly. Their bigs, forward, center. Obviously, Jalen Johnson can kind of play that tweener of a 3-4, but they're needing size. Obviously, they signed Jock Landale. I know that was a pickup that, we brought up in the free agency.
Yeah.
But They don't. Aneko Konwu, great. He's an undersized big though, so whatever that looks like, he was a great shooter this year. If he can replicate that, will be a great, a great, not extension, but a great key to their roster. But they're needing more size. I think that's kind of what not they struggled with, but obviously Cat when they went against the Knicks, Cat, the Mitchell Robinsons, OG and Anobi, like those type of players were giving them a lot of problems because of the front court, the lack of depth that they had in the front court position. And something to kind of key in on, building around Jalen Johnson, surrounding him with more shooters. I think that's kind of where that they were lacking a lot this year, but you said that they were a great assist team. I think, they were so good because of how quick they were able to run in transition with Jalen Johnson getting the ball, running, kicking it out to the open man. They need to key in on that type of game style or that game plan because we saw how successful they were with it. But if they could just, develop more of their, they got Aaron Wiggins that we haven't talked about. They have Buddy Hield. They have shooters that they're kind of surrounding Jalen Johnson and Nickel Alexander Walker with. But I think that's the main game plan that I think they need to, key in on is, getting better shooters and just kind of stick to the moving the ball. Obviously they have great creators, but they're going to need to rely a lot on the bench and keying in onto that because like we mentioned it, you need a full roster to try to go deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you did a good job about, explaining about their front court depth. One thing for me, I would want to say that Atlanta could probably improve on is just establishing a clear hierarchy behind Jalen Johnson and who's doing what. You brought up a good point with Dyson Daniels. Nickeil Alexander Walker is the clear number 2, but at times it's like McCollum, it's Daniels, and at times that's what falls to Jalen Johnson. That's what I would say is like establish who's kind of in the pecking order,
Gotcha, yeah.
I've seen that a lot from OKC or the Thunder. It's pretty clear how they operate in each game, and it's hard to be consistent with your playing style if you don't know who's going to give you what.
Mm-hmm.
So they do have to figure out for next season specifically, because at times last year they did good with this, but like next season, now with Kinston Fleming's in the fold, they're going to have to figure out some clarity surrounding that. Their front court is weak, and I believe Vsar is nicer than people expect. He's probably should be one of the better second round picks, but you do need front court depth. You need bench depth in general, which again, they were able to pick up Buddy Hield and Aaron Wiggins and help that out a little bit. But I just think it's establishing a clear hierarchy behind Jalen Johnson. And then something that they can lean into for their strengths is their transition game. And there's just continuing to play with that style, like you said. That's what I was going to say originally, but just continuing to run in transition, bro. And don't be a selfish team. They're one of the more unselfish teams in the NBA. We saw what they were able to do against New York. That's because they were playing unselfishly. We know Game 6 was an embarrassment, whatever. But at times they looked like the better team, and the Knicks were the champions. So they have the championship ability if they play the right way. Sometimes they play small and it goes really well for them. They have a lot of guys who can shoot at each position, which makes it nice. You can go a little bit smaller. Konwu has done a great job of adding a useful 3-point shot to his game. But yeah, if they had to work on one thing, it's establishing that hierarchy like behind Jalen Johnson, and then definitely leaning into the transition game and the style that they played last year. Passing the ball, sharing the ball, everybody touches it, and just yeah, and it's crazy because of course those are kind of contradicting things. You can see why they have problems with finding out who's in the pecking order, and it's because they're kind of like, well, everybody can do like something, but they need to figure out who's doing what so they can become and really like get to that next level, become a championship team, because championship teams have that figured out. Like Big Body Brunson was the guy. Game 5, like it was no questions about it, and everybody kind of followed suit. It feels like at times the Hawks look to multiple different people to be their number one guy, and that's not how the NBA can work. So once they get those things cleaned up, I think they'll be good. You brought up a good point with the front court depth. I brought up a good point with the hierarchy. All this to say, We believe that their overall team grade is a B. The reason we give it a B is because there are some depth issues and some clear pecking order issues. Like I said, at times the Hawks do look a little lost because they don't know who to go to. And like CJ said, they struggle with their front court specifically in the depth. They get eaten alive by teams that are much bigger than them, and that's been a problem for them. But some fours for them is they're a great assist to turnover ratio team. They play defense great, which is another big thing when we talk about championship contenders. They're not good enough to be an A, but they're also not bad enough to be in the C range. Just truth be told, grading scale is pretty simple, but A's are going to be the best teams in the NBA, and then C's or potentially D's or even F's will be the worst teams in the NBA. So we'll grade their balance sheet, their team. We'll look at who they're building around and come up with some sort of measuring scale for you guys. But yeah, just given what they did last year and what they're expected to do this year, I'm expecting a similar outcome. Playoff team, probably not the first seed in the East, but definitely top 6. But yeah, just to improve their roster, they got to get more depth. They have to play more together because honestly, getting Kinston Flemings is a big W. So adding him to the fold is going to take some time to implement. And then just continuing to build around Jalen Johnson. I believe he's a really good player. I know you like him. I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. And he's really good, bro. They have a diamond with that guy. So hopefully they can figure it out and get him into playoff scenarios where he can go and compete and win, bro.
Yeah. And like we mentioned it earlier, it's just ideal. That's the ideal situation for a player at Kingston Fleming's level. Like this is a team that was just in the playoffs. They are needing a point guard now, and that's what they were able to get. So it landed perfectly for them to be able to get that type of player, someone that can defend to, play on both sides of the ball and, be able to create for everyone. It keys in onto, the type of game plan that we said they should key in on, and running in transition. He can get people involved. It's good. And like you said, I expect them to be a playoff team. I don't think they're going to be the top team in the East, but I think they can be a solidified playoff team. Sorry. And, potentially, upset depending on where they end up going. But, even if they don't, it's they're moving in the right direction, and they're building off of what they were able to, they over exceeded expectations last year. So now that's kind of the bar for me and for the franchise. I would assume that's where we can be whenever we're clicking on all cylinders. And now we're adding all these players. Obviously the front court depth is an issue, but with that being said, it's that they have, once they get the whole Kuminga situation, Gabe Vincent situation figured out, they'll have some wiggle room. So we'll see what that looks like. But like you said, I give them a B as well. And, they're not the worst. They're not the best team, but they're also not in a bad situation. So shout out to the Hawks, man. I think, prior with the Trae Young situation, what are they going to do? We thought he would potentially still be on this roster, and they ended up trading him, and now they believe in Jalen Johnson and all the other guys around him. So it's dope to see. And they could have easily just dwindled off and been a team of the past. They make it to the Eastern Conference Final that one year with Trae Young, and that's all they have. But now their future is hopeful, and I think that's for NBA fan of a team and, a franchise. That's all you really can ask for, being a young team in the Eastern Conference that is looking like it's going to be a pretty competitive conference this upcoming year. So shout out to the Hawks, man.
For sure.
Show love to them.
Shout out Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure, bro. And yeah, we'll see. We'll next episode, you guys we'll see who we get into. But you have anything else to add for the people, man? We know this was it'll be a longer one, but we'll clip it up, probably add this as a separate episode. But you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, man, just we appreciate y'all for, listening and watching as always, and just kind of just recapping the weekend. It just happened, so I kind of want to talk to you about it. Just, it was dope for you to be a part of DreamCon, and appreciate everyone that welcomed us with open arms and was a part of the bigger picture. So just wanted to touch on that a little bit, because I'm proud of all the boys, proud of you, Z, proud of Zay, Carlos, Bert, Cam.
Likewise, man.
Everyone, bro. Just we put in the work, and the fact that we're in these rooms with these influential people, I think it speaks to the work we put in, and how hard that how consistent, and how hard we've worked up to this point. So appreciate y'all as always, and I appreciate you, Z, for sure.
100%, man. And yeah, man, just do what you can this summer to stay up with the NBA. And I appreciate y'all as always, man, and appreciate you too, CJ, just getting a chance to spend time with you, an opportunity to, kick it extended hours, and really get to chop it up and just shoot the shit was awesome. And being at DreamCon, seeing everybody be so cool and respectful. It was just like everybody was so loving there, bro. And those are the communities you want to be around. We have that with the 3 Man Weave community. Y'all are obviously great. We love y'all. We couldn't do this without y'all. And yeah, even when we're tired, man, we'll always try to bring the value, and you guys will never know when we're having a bad day. But you'll definitely know when we're having a good day. So yeah, man, just excited for the NBA season. Obviously talking about it makes me excited for it, but I'll wait my time, man. I'll wait my time. So whenever that day comes, I'll be ready. But yeah, bro, that's it for me, man.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if y'all liked and enjoyed this episode of 3 Man Weave, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time, man. Peace.
Peace.
3 Man, 3 Man, 3 Man, 3 Man.